I remember back in the day there's a very famous cricket player from England called Graham Hick.
Yeah.
And Hick has scored like tons and tons of runs in domestic county cricket in England. But the minute he would come into the English test team, he just wouldn't be able to. So, but funding being what it is and the money required at that time to race in A1, 1 year's budget was like $4 million US.
Whoa.
Yeah, this is back in 2008. And the Goras who were running the team, the series managers basically who owned the series A1GP, they were managing Team Pakistan. Who knows what it's all.
Yeah.
So when you're doing an hour, now just to give you an idea, Formula One driver has like 4 Gs of forces being put on his neck. They lose up to 2 kg to 3 kg of weight after a single Formula One race.
A single Formula One race?
Yes.
Hello and welcome to episode 6 of the Locker Room, and we have a very special guest yet again. His name is Uwais Naqvi. Some people call him Sonic. I really want to know what Sonic means. And Uwais Naqvi is basically the CEO and the founder of Omni Karting Circuit. Uwais, आप मुझे please बताएं, please tell me. You know, when I interview people, it's related to cricket, football, and then all of a sudden, Omni Karting Circuit, racing.
Right.
Why? Why racing?
So racing purely, honestly, because I wanted to do racing at a formula level myself. And that's how basically the whole concept of building a track in Pakistan came about. And this was many, many years ago when I was trying to do some level of racing internationally abroad in formula racing. So we had no facilities, we had no karting track, no coaching, no infrastructure in Pakistan available at that time. This was back in 2007-8, and so I had to go abroad to do everything and learn and all of those things. Along that journey, I observed the tracks I would be doing all of these activities at, and I started thinking, why can't we build something like this of this standard in Pakistan? And as I went abroad more and more to do the limited stuff that I was able to do, the resolve kept sort of growing or strengthening, or the vision kept growing. We need this, we should have it. This is also a sport which I feel a lot of people have an interest in. I think naturally everybody pretty much almost knows how to drive a car, whether you're male, female, anyone these days above the age of 17, 18, has driven a car. So it's something that appeals across a wide spectrum, whereas other sports may be slightly more niche, but driving a car and competing behind the wheel is something I think that we have inherently as human beings inside us.
Especially in Ramzan, जिन लोगों ने fasting की भी होती है, जो road rage होती है, if you guys want to go and take out all your road rage, you guys can actually go to Omni Karting Circuit and show your best laps. Because usually यहाँ पे लोगों को road पे, and you're right, when people say everyone is a driver, whoever wants to drive, there's a certain element of I would say an ownership when you're on wheels.
Right.
And I've seen a lot of people who are passionate about driving actually come to the circuit and they are obsessed with racing. But as growing up, I never knew and I never thought कि यहाँ पे पाकिस्तान में एक facility होगी where you can also aspire to compete on an international level.
Right.
So you have. Can you just give us a little heads up कि क्या हुआ था, where did you go, what did you do?
So a long time ago, a karting track did open up in Karachi, which was the first one that ever opened up. It was on the super highway.
Yeah, the Kurangi one, super highway.
Super highway. And it was very far outside the city, so that and awareness and things like that. And so it didn't last for a long time, but that's where I got my start, and I started karting for the first time over there. And like a regular customer, I used to go there as well, on the weekends and get my thrill and my fill of it. But then obviously it didn't last long. By then I had gotten into the desire to wanting to be, at least pursue formula racing to whatever limited extent. I was always under no misconception that I could reach a very high level, because you need a lot of money. you need to start very early. You need to start at like 6.
Yeah.
And here I was starting like, in my mid 20s back then. And, so there was no illusions about what could be achieved. But there was still a thing that, well, you have one life to live.
Yeah.
So do what you can.
Do what you
let
can.
the chips fall where they may, and then move on from that. And so basically, then I went abroad. I went to Dubai. We took back in 2006. I took a team of 8 or 9 drivers from Pakistan, from Karachi, to participate in the Dubai 24 hours karting race. That was just to see how capable and where we stand with respect to, and that's a very basic level. And at the same time, what happened was a racing series called A1GP was launched. Okay. And just to give you an idea, in motorsport, the pinnacle is Formula One.
Yeah.
And only 22 drivers in the world at any given time are able to drive in Formula One. Right. So I call it the most exclusive club in the world. Yeah. I mean, you have more kings and queens in the world than you have Formula One drivers. Yeah. So in that respect, it's very hard to get into. You've got 20 years behind you, 6 years old till the time you're like, late teens, early 20s to get into F1, and lots of money that you need, sponsorship and money. So all of those things were, as a Pakistani, challenges. And again, other challenges are visas. So we're Pakistani. Now you want to go anywhere, you need to train. There's no training in Pakistan. There's no tracks in Pakistan back then. So you need to go to Dubai closest. Yeah. Or Bahrain, where the F1 track was the closest. Yeah. So I trained at the Bahrain F1 circuit. Then I went to Spain and I trained at the F1 circuit in Spain, did a racing course. But these are, again, 3-day courses that cost like $10,000-$15,000 for 3 days. Yeah.
$10,000 to $15,000?
Just for 3 days, yeah.
Wow.
And this is not talking about the entry level. If you want to do a full season of, let's say, Formula BMW, which is what I did, of that racing. So that would cost, the cheapest at that time was maybe around $150,000 to race in one season of.
So basically, if you want to compete, or if you aspire to even be a racer, you need your pockets full. Yeah.
So racing
words, unless you're not sponsored.
But unless, and even then you need to have money to get into the sport, right? Which is, these are all the challenges that are there anywhere, but being a Pakistani from Pakistan, they're quadrupled. They're 100 times larger. Visa, money, infrastructure, coaching, being able to compete. You see, nothing teaches you better than competing against your peers. Yeah. And unless you have a facility, you can't compete. So you have to go abroad to compete. But then if you go abroad just to compete, where are you going to train and learn? Yeah. So, so that's been my journey, that when I was doing all of this and I was going abroad and doing a little bit that I could, I managed to get into Formula BMW. Like I said, again, limited races. Yeah. I did some limited racing in the US at a very entry level. Okay. I was eligible to race in A1GP. I got my racing license that allowed me to race in that. Prior to me, there were non-Pakistani, or you could drivers that had some Pakistani heritage, but that doesn't really count because they're not local. They have no real local affinity or knowledge. So they were being used in that series to drive for the team Pakistan. Okay. Okay. So A1GP, the concept was each team was a nation team. So it was the World Cup of motorsport is how they had positioned it. Okay. And it was Team Great Britain, Team France, Team USA. So there was a Team India, there was a Team Pakistan as well. The Pakistani team was run by the Goras, managed by the Goras. And the driver was like a half Pakistani, half Gora, British, whatever, etc. Local, there was nobody who was even close to.
Iman is
Well, he's, again, same thing. He's a British Pakistani.
Does that matter if he's not a Pakistani and a British Pakistani?
Look, so the thing in my opinion is that, a local Pakistani is a true representative of the population. Yes. Yeah. If you don't know the culture, if you don't know the language, if you have not come through the country, having gone through the struggle and whatever is required to go through here, then obviously you cannot relate or be a representative, right? Yeah. So that's my opinion. So in my time, there were 2 such drivers, one from the US, one from the UK, who drove for the team. But the minute I became eligible, I was then offered the spot. But funding being what it is and the money required at that time to race in A1, 1 year's budget was like 4 million US dollars.
Whoa.
Yeah, this is back in 2008. And the Goras who were running the team, the series managers basically who owned the series A1 GP, they were managing Team Pakistan. So they said that, look, we'll put in $2 million, but you come up with $2 million from Pakistan as a franchise owner or sponsorship. And in 2008, you'll recall, or you're probably too young to recall, but
not too young, not too young.
You know,
You're being too modest.
no,
I'm
no.
not
So
too young.
there was the global financial crisis that happened,
Yeah.
in 2008
Yeah.
August. So literally August के beginning में I was offered the drive with the caveat that you come up with $2 million, and then the world collapsed, financial markets collapsed. It was the whole Lehman Brothers collapse, Merrill Lynch collapse, and all that.
Yeah.
So the recession came in, and so that money wasn't going to come, especially from a country like Pakistan. Where there's no awareness.
Yeah.
And that's the challenge you get into. When you go to sponsors or media, there was no awareness as such. So it was like, yeah, what's in it for us if we sponsor you? So the concept has always been similar, that if a Pakistani driver from here who has those affinities and bonds and stuff and has the talent is able to be nurtured, groomed, taught, and given the opportunity or the platform locally to compete with his peers, then you can see, from amongst all of us, who is the best.
The best.
And then we can focus on those few individuals. It doesn't have to be one.
Yeah.
Because like in cricket, you may have a cricket player who's really good at domestic level. And we've seen this.
Yeah.
We've seen brilliant domestic players, and they score thousands and thousands and tons of runs. But the minute they get to international level, it's like they're
a different
just,
ball game altogether.
Right? And some people who have maybe not shown at the domestic level, they come into the Pakistan team.
International level.
Or this applies not just for the Pakistan team, this applies for many, many other sports. I mean, I remember back in the day, there's a very famous cricket player from England called Graham Hick.
Yeah.
And Hick has scored like tons and tons of runs in domestic county cricket in England. But the minute he would come into the English test team, he just wouldn't be able to. So,
Does it have a lot to do with your nerves? Because obviously, like you're playing that particular sport, you might not be good at a particular event,
right?
But the next day you're completely different. Like you can't compete, you can't play. ये होता है, ये बहुत like, is it all mental or you think it's more physical?
Racing is very, very mental. Look, so there's two sides to racing. There's actually three sides to racing. The physical, which people, the lay person may see it from the outside, from the sideline.
And think there's nothing physical happening.
You just sit in a car, you're sitting in a seat, and
exactly.
But once you do it, 15 minutes of a karting session, and anyone who's done it at our track knows what it's all.
Yeah.
So when you're doing an hour, now just to give you an idea, Formula One driver has like 4 Gs of forces being put on his neck. They lose up to 2 kg to 3 kg of weight after a single Formula One race.
A single Formula One race?
Yes. You will drop your weight between, and we do this in karting. So in karting, we'll see this. When we recently took a team for, again, the Dubai 24 Hours in December. And the rule was that all drivers have to maintain a weight of 85 kgs. Okay. Now, if you weigh, let's say 83 kg, or if you weigh 85 kg, you don't need to add weight to come up to the weight level. So if you're below 85, then you add weight as ballast to your cart.
Okay.
In order to, so if you're a 70 kg person is going to put on 15 kgs more.
Okay.
An 85 kg person, you're going to say, hey, then they don't need to put anything on.
Yeah.
But no, the rule is, okay, you need to weigh 85. Once you finish your session, they do a weigh-in. And if you are below 85 when you do your weigh-in, then you will be penalized. So we had drivers who weighed exactly 85 on point, but even those drivers had to put 2.5 kgs on because after driving an hour,
because they're losing 2 kgs,
they would have lost in water loss, they would have lost fluid, and they would have dropped to anywhere between 1.5 to 2 kgs in that 1 hour of karting, just in karting.
So weigh-ins is a huge criteria in racing as well.
Weight is absolutely in karting, especially weight makes is a difference. So again, just to give you a perspective, every 20 kgs is 1 second slower.
Okay.
So a driver who weighs 60 kg versus a driver who weighs 80 kg, the 60 kg guy and the 80 kg guy, if they're both driving in the same talent, skill level, same ability, they will be 1 second apart still because of the weight.
Okay.
And the way racing is done is then you equalize to a minimum standard, which is 85.
Yeah.
Anyone above 85 needs to get fit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they need to lose weight to get fit. But so physicality is a big element.
Yeah.
Then you asked about the mental aspect.
Yeah.
I'll come to that.
Yeah.
There's also the technical aspect.
Yeah.
So an individual needs to know as you progress through levels of racing, certain elements of car setup, because then the driver needs to give feedback back to his team.
Yeah.
And
It's not a one-man sport.
Right.
After watching Formula
Yeah.
One Drive to Survive, like I think a lot of people's perspectives must have changed that
Yeah.
there's an entire team.
Right.
It's a proper setup and
Yeah.
like a lot of math and algorithms are going into play
Yes.
while racing.
Calculations,
Yeah.
time, and the driver needs to give feedback to the team so the mechanics can see, okay, this is how the car is behaving, so we need to set it up accordingly. But then there are elements of driving style. Now, driver A, like Lewis Hamilton, may have a style of really hard braking, and somebody like Max Verstappen,
my favorite,
might brake
Let me just put it out
earlier.
there.
Yeah, you know. So absolutely, he's a super driver. Is So driving style also determines how a car needs to be set up. And I have seen this where I've driven in a go-kart, let's say, at our track, same go-kart, let's say kart number 5.
Yeah.
I drive it, another driver who's equally capable drives it, and we will both put different times in that kart. Because maybe mine or his driving style is more suited to how that kart is behaving. And so, that also changes.
Okay.
The mental aspect is huge, and a lot of people don't get this, but you have to be patient in racing.
Yeah.
You have to be very smart about when you're making the overtaking move.
And it's not your call most of the times. It's the team telling you exactly when to overtake.
So that's in F1.
Yeah, that's an F1.
Or at times, but those are that's when realistically when you're competing against your own teammate. But otherwise,
that's very biased, by the way. At times, like with Max Verstappen, Red Bull baby, you have to let the other one take the lead.
Right.
So how does it work? Because they're like 20 players, 10 teams.
Right.
Each team has 2 players.
Right.
They both can shine.
Right.
Why is it like there's a focus on a particular player? Lewis Hamilton, Max Verstappen.
So, it's very interesting you asked this question.
Yeah.
It's a really cool question, because what people need to understand is that F1 or motorsport at the end of the day is a business.
Yeah.
It's a business.
Yeah, it is.
And it's entertainment, it's sport, and it's business.
Yeah.
And there are hundreds of millions of dollars behind the teams, behind the drivers, sponsorship money.
Yeah.
So there's always a driver A.
Yeah.
And there's a marquee driver. And he gets, whether someone likes this or not, but he gets the premium and the best of everything. And it's in the team's best interest. Why? Because maybe that driver has brought more sponsorship to the team.
Yeah.
So because that driver has brought more sponsorship, they need to give him more weightage and superiority over the other driver. Yeah. So that's the answer. So, motorsport, even when we run our business, this is the challenge we face, because there is the business side of it, which drives everything. If the business does not run, then the sport cannot run. So the business interest and the business strategic commercial interest will always supersede the sporting interest, because the sport can only be made viable if the business is commercially viable. So,
okay, tell me something, Wes.
Yeah.
I'm going to talk about F1 right now.
Okay.
So Formula One you see all sorts of cars. Okay. McLaren, Mercedes, Aston Martin, Ferrari, Red Bull. So when you get sponsorships, you have more money. When you have more money, you can invest in the car. Right. You can invest in the engine. Obviously, sabka criteria same hota hai. Everyone has to have the same amount of weight for the car. But does this impact if I'm a Red Bull driver and you're a Ferrari driver, and our cars are different? The whole dynamics is the same, but the cars are different. Does a particular car play a huge role
Right.
in you winning? Like Lewis Hamilton, example, he was driving a Mercedes.
Right.
And Max Verstappen was driving a Red Bull car. If he was to bump up to a Ferrari or Mercedes,
Right.
would it be a huge difference back then compared to what's happening now?
So I'll start this answer with something about the word formula.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
So the word formula comes from the fact that when a racing series is set up, that racing series, whoever has set it up, whoever has organized it, provides a set of specifications.
Yeah.
That specification is the formula for that series. Which is why Formula One has certain specifications which the governing body for racing, FIA has given.
Yeah.
Now, all the teams participating, and every year this formula changes. The specifications basically change, okay?
Yeah.
But the Formula One specs are the pinnacle.
Yeah.
And then Formula Two specs will be based on whatever those are, but they will be below. So, for example, Formula One specs may say the car's minimum horsepower must be 700 bhp up to the range of 1000 bhp.
Yeah.
Now, it's up to the teams to develop their engines within the maximum or minimum. Now, a team may be able to develop a 900 bhp engine, but then that weight will become excessive.
And the lighter the car, the better.
The better.
Right?
So now another team may say, we're going to develop an 800 bhp engine, but that their engine may be 20 kgs lighter.
Yeah.
So their weight to power ratio may be better. Yeah. So within the specifications that are given, that's how the cars then are designed by teams. Yeah. And that is why the team aspect is important, because it's the driver plus the car he's given.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. At times they're not happy with the car.
And they're not happy because they, for whatever reason, within those specifications, their engineers are not managing to get the optimal or maximized design output.
Yeah.
And that's why they're continuously designing work is going on and parts are being changed. And every team jealously guards its own formula within that formula, right? Yeah. So one team may be using a combination of a rear diffuser, which is 3 mm on the angle, on the degree and all that, and their engine is lightweight but giving more horsepower. So another team may want to know is how are they managing to reduce the weight but get more power. But you want to keep all that secret because that's your formula.
That's how you're defining a car and a brand.
Right. But at the lower level, this does not happen.
Okay. F2 and F3?
This does not happen. F2, F3, F4. Lower levels, what happens is all the cars are the same spec.
Okay.
So the organizers provide or tell teams that these are the cars and the cars are identical, the tires are identical, everything is identical. What is not identical is the driver and how the driver is getting his engineers to set up the car for him. So set up the car means how they change the angles on the wings, how they change the angles on the tires, the brake bias, the camber, caster, things like that. And a driver optimizes those settings for himself on a different track. The settings change, but the driver cannot complain that my car's engine, my tires, my other things are different. So the junior levels are equalized in order to determine who
can actually compete,
who as a driver is the best.
Yeah.
And then once you get to Formula One, the game is about both car design and driving.
I think हम लोग बहुत technicalities पे चले गए and our audience will be like, what are they talking about? I'm so sorry. We'll get back to the generic stuff right after a short break. Welcome back to the show, guys. Owais and I got too technical, but that's the love for racing. I mean, if anyone who loves Formula 1, 2, 3, or anyone just loves to race, you guys need to know all of these things. Owais, okay. So हम लोगों ने लास्ट क्या बात की थी? हमने लास्ट ये बात की थी कि Formula 1 में गाड़ियों के बारे में and their mechanics. I caught on something I want to elaborate. So when you are speeding, and with Formula 1, you're speeding at like 222 kilometers per hour. You can go max to that, right?
Right.
Does that have any effect to your weight in the sense, like I can't explain. What I'm trying to say is does your time slows down? right?
Right.
Cosmic way, mein, time slows down.
Right.
And your weight also slows down, like your weight drops. It does it have anything like I can't make sense of what I'm trying to say, but you get what I'm trying to say, right?
So over the course of a race,
Yeah.
because the temperatures inside the cockpit and the physicality of driving an F1 car, you lose a lot of fluid. You sweat, you lose a lot of fluid, and that's what drops your weight.
Yeah.
So when you start, from the time you end the race, you will be 2, 3, 4 kgs less. Okay. While you're racing, the concept of speed and stuff, I mean, those drivers get so attuned to that, and while you're doing those speeds, it's ridiculous. But really, you everything is happening in slow motion.
Everything, and you they say, as per Neil deGrasse, they say that time also slows down, so you might be a little less older compared to a normal human being.
Well,
like,
look,
on a universal level.
Look, racing is a high like no other. It's an all natural high, and when you're on the track, in the cart or in the car, and you're racing and you're competing wheel to wheel, you overtake someone, or you're chasing someone, or you're keeping someone behind you. And you're doing this cleanly, not bumping and grinding and all of that. And obviously in a Formula 1 car, you bump and grind, it's like a $100,000 wing gone, whatever. So that feeling, that high is incomparable. It's awesome. It's awesome. I mean,
it's like another level of adrenaline rush.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, constant dopamine.
And it's
constant,
addictive. It makes you keep coming back again and again, wanting to do better and improve.
And when we talk about speed, it is a very risky sport. I mean, last season, I don't remember, there was a driver who was almost about to be burnt.
Wow, you remember
Yeah.
You remember
and
that?
he came out after a minute or so.
Yeah.
And everyone was convinced at that point in time that he's gone.
Yeah.
And he came out, he was burnt. He was like, his hands were burnt and stuff. And he obviously survived. But it's a very risky sport.
Yeah. So
I mean,
even
one wrong cut, and you can die.
Yeah.
There and then.
Yeah. So that accident is probably the most horrible accident
it
I
was.
have ever seen in F1.
Yeah.
And I've been watching F1 for almost 30 years.
Yeah.
And that was, I did not think he was going to survive that.
Yeah.
That driver was stuck in the metal barriers.
Yeah.
Car was in flames. He was, and kudos to the rescue team, the technology of the vehicle that protected him in the shell, and the gear that he was wearing, which was all fireproof, probably made in Pakistan.
Yeah.
So all the racing gear, suits, gloves, shoes, all of this fireproof stuff that is branded and sold for thousands of dollars abroad.
In Formula 1.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, whether it's Alpine Star, Puma, all these brand names, Sparco, a lot of the racing gear, all Nomex fireproof racing gear is manufactured in Pakistan. The same way the World Cup football
FIFA.
made. Yeah.
A lot of people know about FIFA, but I don't think so. A lot of people know about Formula 1.
Yeah.
And
So,
this is like with F1, F2, F3.
Yeah. All homologated racing gear. It's very, very possible that some of the drivers are wearing is made in Pakistan.
So maybe, and he got saved. So who knows, man? Like we don't like, हम लोग जाली काम नहीं करते. In other words, like a lot of people think कि जो चीज पाकिस्तान से बन के आती है वो export.
No, this is why I'm always about made in Pakistan. Made for Pakistan. We tend to have a colonial mindset.
Yes.
That anything that comes from abroad is superior or better quality than something that comes from local. But we recently got our racing gear made from a local manufacturer in Sialkot.
Yeah.
And that racing gear was top. We had foreign teams there asking us, where did you guys get this made? Can you get this made for us? And it's all exported and it's top quality.
It's crazy. If I were to give you a pair of jeans right now, anyone, and say it's made in Pakistan and made in US, naturally, psychologically, everyone's going to be like, this is the best quality. And even though that is the one that has been exported, and unne apna wahan pe wo tag dal diya. But again, the mindset has to change. The stuff has to change. Okay, OS, we're really, really running out of time, and I have a lot of things to ask you. So let's get back to Pakistan.
Sure.
Pakistan mein, we have Omni go-karting
Right.
circuit, right?
Right.
I've seen one in Islamabad, but that's not yours. I've seen one in
Right.
Lahore. Do you think, okay, it's a very nice platform. Do you think it is all what a driver needs at the moment
Right.
to actually go and compete on international levels?
Right.
Are there any even drivers in Pakistan who aspire to be
Right.
international racers?
Right.
Do you think there's a scope for
Right.
racing in Pakistan,
Right.
basically?
Okay, so yeah, we've got 3 karting circuits in the country right now. One in Lahore and Islamabad, and they're doing a commendable job. I think. I think it's excellent that people in those cities have that facility to go to. Obviously, they run it's a business at the end of the day, and they have their own business strategy of how they run it. We have designed our facility in a way where it's both for recreation and entertainment, where you guys can come with your friends and family and just have a good time.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we also want to promote the sport of karting and motorsport, and which is why we're doing this Ramzan karting challenge and all of that. And I'll explain about that. But there is scope. First, obviously, the business needs to be standing on its feet and able to be viable. And from that, we're able to promote the sport and take it forward. There's no dearth of talent. I mean, I've seen the drivers. I've driven with a lot of the young boys who are 10, 15, 20 years younger. There's a couple of kids who are in their early teens, even pre-teens, like 11, 12. We have an 11-year-old driver who drives really well for his age. His name is Zidane, and he's 11 years old and drives really well, but he still needs a lot of learning, training, coaching, and he drives with the big boys, and we try to help him out and guide him as much as we can. But obviously, in order for him to move forward, first he needs to compete at the local level.
Yeah.
He needs to be able to beat the older drivers and learn, and then the next step would be to move to a regional level, which would be then the Gulf and the Middle East. They have top class facilities. So then compete at the regional level. So national level, regional level, and then move to Europe or the US level. So that takes time, effort, money. But what we want to do is start national level races. So right now, the NGK Ramzan Challenge that we have coming up or ongoing right now, we have teams coming from Lahore, from Islamabad. We have some teams coming from Dubai as well. So, we want to have that competition going to see how our local boys compete with each other against foreign drivers and teams as well. And then see, who is the best or amongst the top and the leading drivers. And already the leading drivers are showing. When we went to Dubai, we took the top 6-7 drivers, and they were able to put up a really good show, and compete with the foreign drivers who have been racing day in, day out for many, many years.
And with racing, it's very black and white. You need your best lap. So obviously, no, you don't. Then what? What are the other stuff that goes into play?
So lap times are not important as far as I'm concerned. It is a component, and yes, naturally you need to be fast. You can't be slow.
Yeah.
But you cannot be fast one-off.
Yeah.
You need to be fast
consistently
throughout the 15 minutes, 30 minutes, half an hour. And fast means literally within 3/10, 4/10, not more than half a second off.
Yeah.
Half a second between laps is the maximum range. So if I do a session, all my laps should be within half a second of my fastest. Of my fastest.
Okay.
Anything beyond that was not a good lap.
Okay.
So there's consistency, there's speed, then there's racecraft. And racecraft is the hardest to learn. Racecraft is the one that takes the longest. It's easy to put a one-off fast time. Then you can build consistency also. But racecraft, when I talk about that, that's about how you get through traffic, how you get avoid collisions, how you overtake without bumping or hitting people, how when other people are hitting you from the side or from the back, you're still able to maintain your kart control, not get thrown into a spin, not lose your position, how you avoid a guy who spun right in front of you, your reflexes and your ability to forecast and predict that and avoid the collision, because somebody spins in front of you, you may avoid them, but I've seen drivers lose their position because wo avoid karne mein khud ko spin kar lete.
So basically, racing is just not sitting on the wheels and just pressing the accelerator button. There's a lot in play. There's a lot that goes into play. Owais, my producer, is constantly looking at me and saying, wrap it up, wrap it up. I had so many things to ask you, but we're going to obviously definitely call you the next time. Owais, I give you 2 minutes to look at the camera and say promote whatever you want to promote.
So Saira, I want to thank all of you guys for DN Sports for having us and being a partner with us in the NGK Ramzan Karting Challenge. So this is the first time that we at Omni Karting Circuit are doing a racing competition. We have not been able to do this. We've slowly built our capacity. Now we're ready. We have NGK as a title sponsor. We have DN Sports on board as our media partner. And inshallah, this is the start. There are 2 formats that we're running. We request whoever's interested to come online and sign up. There's the Sprint Cup, which is for individual drivers. There's the Endurance Cup, where you can make a 4-man team and you can enter your team. It's a 6-hour mini endurance race. So your drivers will swap positions during the 6 hours based on your own strategy. And so that's, this is the start. And hopefully from here, we can have a sustained calendar for the rest of the year of our league championships and our Grand Prix level championships. And we look forward to having all of our partners on board, the sponsors like NGK, any others that come on board, media partners like DN Sports, so we look forward to, having the racing culture started in Pakistan.
Thank you so much, Owais, for being on our show. And hopefully next time I'm going to call him again, because I have to ask him a lot of things regarding racing. Because I love to follow and watch Formula One. So, but we were short of time, Owais, but it was lovely having you, and there were a lot of insights that I did not know. So thank you so much for enlightening all of us. This is me, Sarah Omer, signing out.